Hi guys, Script over here with another video. I never saw this. This is actually from May. But this is yet another thing. You know, everyone's like, oh, we know the real reason George Lucas retired. Now we got another one now. You know, it would be nice. Like, George is one of the funniest guys that way. Like, he doesn't fully say stuff. I think he likes leaving questions out there. Because if you talk to a shill, the shill will say, or the Stan, or the Disney Star Wars folk, they'll say, oh, it was not even, you know what, I shouldn't even limit to them. There's just, a lot of fans on the sort of this is what it is. Anyone who thinks the, quote, fandom menace is bad, or has some sort of power over these people, like George, will say that George retired because of people were mean after the prequels. And you're like, okay, you're still involved with Clone Wars and things after that, but okay, sure, it's the mean fans. By the way, most of that came from the media, not fans. Ask Ahmed Best if you don't believe me, and Jake Lloyd for that matter. But then George came out and said that he sold to Disney because it's going to take him 10 years to do another trilogy. He'd be in his 80s by the time it was done. And he wanted to, do his own thing. And, he said that. He said that to what's his name there? Charlie Rose. He said it to him in that big interview they had. That's what he said. He said, it'd take too long. And then remember, he's like, oh, and I sold it to the white slavers. So now we got this third reason. George Lucas reveals is this the real reason now? Everything seems to be the real reason or not the real reason. George Lucas has explained his reasoning for leaving Star Wars universe behind. The filmmaker wrote and directed the first feature film in 1977, launched a multimedia franchise. However, in 2012, after 5 more Star Wars movies and countless television broadcasts, novels, action figures, and more, he sold his company to Lucasfilm, to Disney, giving up ownership of the long-running sci-fi franchise, fantasy franchise, that is. That is one of the top 5 highest earning in history. I wonder what the other 5 are. Or 4 are. Gotta be Lord of the Rings, gotta be one of them. Star Trek. The French outlet Brut recently shared a clip from an interview with Lucas that was conducted at the 2024 Cannes Film Festival. In the interview clip, he discusses his retirement, saying, "We could see the problems with theatrical distribution amid the rise of streaming platforms, particularly Netflix, and he decided to leave the business because he recognized that it was on the verge of a giant transition." Well, where was this when you said you were doing it because you were getting too old? Like, that's what you said, dude. You said you were getting too old. Now, I understand the whole, like, oh, people were mean to me, so I don't want to make more Star Wars movies was just made up by fans. But, because he never actually said that. But you did say you were getting too old. So now is he in his 80s and he's like, man, I wish I wouldn't have sold. I could have made those movies. I'd be in the same position I am now. You gotta wonder, because this is a weird thing to say now. Streaming is really powerful and it's great. It's really up the movie business, because the theatrical movie business, we could see the problems and it was not good. So everybody was looking to save it. But nobody knew streaming would. And that's when Netflix took off. And at that point I said, I don't know what this is going to be. There's going to be a giant transition in the business. I don't know that much about it. And I sold the company and I retired. Now, I would make the argument that good movies still work in the movie theater. Now, a lot of studios are too scared to do that. They put them straight to streaming. But good movies can still make money. Lots of money. The movie business has taken some huge hits, though. The physical theaters with the whole COVID lockdowns and everything, and then everyone got used to sitting on their butts at home even more. I think what Netflix really did to change the whole business was the binge series. Dropping a full series on a single day. And now a lot of these streaming services are going away from that, because they're like, oh, people are just signing up, watching the show, and then leaving and not keeping their membos for longer. But in some ways, that's backfiring. Because if your show sucks really bad, like The Acolyte, and you suckered people into paying for 2 months, they're going to be more mad than if your show sucked, they watched it for a day and then canceled their sub and only paid 1 month, right? So, in a way, it's kind of backfired. Lucas sensed the film industry was changing. Even though the state of streaming looked entirely different in 2012, it turns out Lucas was exactly right about the industry being in a huge state of transition. Well, that wasn't a big secret. Everybody knew. People were already going to the theater less. The theater was getting too expensive. We have, 104-inch or 105-inch display TVs. You can get a 75-inch TV here up in Canada at Costco for like $1,000. Like, so people are less likely to go to a theater and pay $15 for a medium popcorn and pop. Like, that's just reality. So that was already happening. So let's not pretend that seeing that there was going to be a change in the industry was some, amazing discovery by George. I mean, it was we all could see it. It wasn't anything special. Although Disney Star Wars projects still had theatrical hits, including The Force Awakens, which earned more than $2 billion and is still the 5th highest grossing movie of all time worldwide, the franchise hasn't had a theatrical release since 2019. With the majority of new projects debuting directly on streaming on Disney+. Now, let's not forget, though, that there was There was a 16-year gap between Return of the Jedi and The Phantom Menace. It was a 16-year gap. So, having big gaps is not necessarily indicative of, it's because they can't make money. Like, not having put out a movie in 5 years isn't indicative of, people wouldn't watch it in the theaters. There was a 16-year gap. And then there was another, 10-year gap between the prequels and the sequels. Or if not longer, correct? When was the last prequel? Yeah, something like, about 10 years. So that's no. If you make a good Star Wars movie, you're going to make money. The Force Awakens was mid at best, and it made $2 billion. Now that it's attached to the other two, it's considered way worse. But it made $2 billion. Now, I, right off the bat, didn't like it. I didn't like Rey doing mind tricks and crap when she had no idea what that even was. Nobody had ever explained that to her. And then they retconned it in a book 3 years later and said that she downloaded Kylo's whatever. Well, how would she know how to do that? So, anyways, all that to say, you can still make money, especially with Star Wars. And the gaps actually can be a good thing. It can make the hype bigger. Now, not anymore, since Disney has basically told us what we put out is very likely going to be garbage. At best, it's going to be mid. Even Andor. If you read my reviews, man, or watch my reviews, I should say, Andor's kind of a cool show, but even Andor, even within the plot and everything else, has problems. People don't notice them. I do. So, it's pretty mid. That's just the way it is. I know people really like it, but if you really think about it, and again, go watch those, you'll see it. There's some issues there. There are also more Star Wars TV shows set to come on streaming with the upcoming The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. This doesn't mean that the franchise has abandoned theatrical distribution, as there are several movies currently in development. Yeah, that's right. There's several movies, including The Mandalorian and Grogu, a follow-up to the popular. All it is season 4. It's just season 4 on the big screen. However, the fact that the franchise has shifted so demonstrably towards streaming for this many years shows that the streaming era has had a huge impact on Lucas's iconic universe. No, but like we're pretending that Disney did that, because that was the way the tide in the industry was going. No, they didn't do that by choice. They put out the movies. By the time the end of The Last Jedi hit, people were pissed off. They put out Solo. People rejected it. People were like, I don't want to watch a Star Wars movie after they just completely ruined my childhood hero in Luke Skywalker. I'm not going back. I don't even care if it's Han Solo. You wrecked Luke. I don't want to watch you wreck Han now. That was the assumption. And then after the Rise of Skywalker, even the Last Jedi stands were like, what is happening here? This is bub kiss. So then they went to the streaming service. And I said in my last video, or whatever, a couple videos ago, the worst thing that could have possibly happened is that the Mando Season 1 was really good. People liked it. And then, of course, what does Disney do? They start pumping out show after show after show after show on the streaming service, which has now watered down the IP. The quality has gone down the bowl, down the toilet. Now it's gone from this hyped up mega franchise that does movies every some odd number of years, sometimes huge gaps, to just a boring everyday show that you've seen a million times. It's just completely depleted. All the hype is gone. Like it's meh now. It's a gigantic meh emoji face. I know you go on YouTube and you get on the internet and you see these channels and they're acting very excited about the latest news and oh my god, this is gonna happen. But in real life, and I'm sure most of you would agree with this, no one cares about Star Wars anymore. Hardly anyone talks about it, unless it's in the negative. Unless it's in the negative, or we're joking around about it. It's become a situation where it just doesn't have its cultural impact anymore that it used to. But again, they didn't go to streaming because of the flow of the industry. They did it because they felt like they needed to, because the sequels were poorly received. And they wanted to do something that was maybe a little bit cheaper and less risky in their mind. You know, you've already got subscribers, so you've got the money to back this and that. And then, you know, if you do gain some, great. You know what I mean? It's a less risky scenario, essentially. But come on, George. Like you said, you wanted to retire because you were getting old. Lucas exhibiting this kind of prescience is in keeping with his past decisions, as this keen sense is something that allowed him to create Star Wars phenomenon. Why are we making George Lucas? Does he even claim here that he retired because they were gonna? Yeah, he's actually claiming that that's why he retired. Bro, you literally said it was because you're getting old. So which is it? Why does he do this? Why doesn't he just say the truth? Or is it both? You thought streaming this and also you were getting old. Okay. But then why didn't you say that years ago when you said it was just because you're getting old? It just feels like he's kind of making it up as he goes along. So this included everything from latching onto the rise of the nascent summer blockbuster and retaining merchandising rights. Yeah, that was actually brilliant. For the property, which the latter of which proved to be one of the most lucrative decisions he ever made. Well, I don't think anyone had ever done that. I think that was... And don't get me wrong, like George is an innovator in a lot of ways. Like he changed the movie business. Let's not kid ourselves. In tons of ways, whether sound, special effects, everything. But is this really why he retired, or was it just because he was getting old? It's just like some of his experiments were more divisive, including adopting many bleeding edge digital filmmaking techniques in the prequels, which changed filmmaking. But Lucas has constantly looked forward at what is next for the industry. Yeah, he's always been ahead of the curve that way. And again, I'm sure he did see that. It's just weird that he's like, you know, this year now he's saying that's why he retired when he said it was because he was getting old. I guess I'm willing to say maybe it's just a combination of both. But either way, I would like to see George Lucas be a little less vague and kind of all over the place with a lot of stuff that he's been saying over the last number of years. First, he calls the Disney people white slavers after he sees what the sequels were. And then now he's promoting Disney Star Wars, and like, I know he has stocks, but it's like, I don't know. It's just, I don't get it. I don't get why he even has shares. Does he have the shares so that he can like feel like he has some control when he shows up on set? Hey, I'm the number one independent shareholder, so listen to what I say. And if they are listening to what he says, and this is the garbage they're putting out, I mean. So, like, are they, George? I don't think they are. So why don't you just sell your shares and then you can start being honest? Because you already spilt the beans that you weren't happy with what they've done. A couple of times you did. You said, it's not mine anymore. Mine are the first 6. Everything else is somebody else's. It has nothing to do with me. You separated yourself. Then now you're coming back in and saying, oh, no, you know. It's bugging me. I don't know how you guys feel. Let me know in the comment section. But it bugs me the way George does this. He's all over the place. Anyways, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. It always helps the channel. Leave a comment down below. Check out everything else on my channel and have yourselves a really good day.